And we're live.
We are
We're back.
live.
We're back. We're back. After a very long hiatus of our normal gap between episodes, here we are back.
We were just chomping at the bit. We were ready to get back in the studio.
Yeah, we're doing it. It's another week, another day, another dollar.
We're just churning out like butter, just churning episodes out.
Well, we've got our unit economics dialed in. We've got our per episode, mechanics all worked out. We know what it takes. We've got a process. Episodes are churning out. Listeners are coming in. Our funnel is looking solid. We just got to pour fuel on the fire.
Exactly. That's all that's needed. Just shovel some cash into it.
Shovel cash into Zero to Traction, a podcast about how first-time founders create companies that scale. Regular co-hosts right back at you in the studio. I'm JDM, aka Josh David Miller, and here with Cameron Law, the director himself. How are you, Cameron?
I'm doing all right. A little under the weather, but we can't miss a ZTT session. So good to be back in the studio.
Well, good to have you. Sorry you're not feeling well. I hope it won't be too taxing to have to talk on a podcast for half an hour. But good. You shake your head no. So
thank you for sharing. So those that just have us in their ear, they can know what was going on.
I'm saying that from you because I'm a big podcast fan, but I don't do video podcasts. Because I listen to podcasts on 1.75 speed. And
man, how fast would you be on 1.75 speed?
I'm not recommending. So I will say. So I was listening to when we were doing those events. What was that last month before? And I told you I was listening to a couple of episodes in the car, and I think you did the same thing on my morning commute. I did keep it on 1.75 speed, and neither one of us are talking at that slow podcast speed that people are expecting these days. I was talking at my normal speed like this, and I was at 1.75, and it did seem a little fast to me. But 1x podcast speed seems drunk. That's how I hear it. So,
got it. Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, we are gathered here today.
That's been your recurring theme. We're gathered. It's Monday, not Sunday. So
I've just got the handle playing in the background, and let's do this. All right. Yes, we're gathered here. So we're back in the studio to talk through a topic that is super, super common. We see tons of startups that come to us saying, all right, it's time to raise our round. We've got some early traction, revenues coming in, and we just need to raise money to do more sales. And we've noticed that there's a big, a really common pattern in here, is that what'll happen is that they'll maybe, assuming that they were even successful, because oftentimes it won't be, but assuming they're even successful in raising the round, they'll pitch on hey, we could pour gas on the fire, we'll do this thing, and then they'll raise the money and cash will be burning fast, customer acquisition costs will skyrocket, churn will increase, and so LTV will go down, and therefore traction sort of come to a halt. And it's wait, why did this happen? And it was because they poured gas on a fire that wasn't yet ready to explode, right? So we talk about this, engine of growth, and that you need to have the engine working before you just try to dial that shit up to 11. And if you aren't paying attention to that, and you don't see that, or you're working with investors who also don't see that, then what'll happen is you'll pour gas on this leaky thing. To switch metaphors midstream here, the tiny leak in your little pirate ship that maybe you thought you could just bail out, once you got on the high seas, as it turns out, just sinks your ship. Maybe Cameron, you have a better metaphor for that.
No, I don't have any better metaphor, but I think, part of it is like we talk about giving yourself this kind of permission to build that repeatable engine. And so part of it is recognizing the round of funding that you're raising. There's different expectations of where you're at and building the components of that engine. And so, when you're raising that Series A, you got to have that engine fully fledged in those mechanics where basically you truly are putting the fuel on the fire for that exponential growth that we see in those J curves. Whereas, those earlier rounds, you're trying to still validate certain components related to that, ultimately that engine or the pirate metrics that you're getting there. And so when you're positioning to investors at an earlier stage that you already have that engine going, the expectation is that then you're going to fuel that exponential growth with the right unit economics, when you might not actually have the evidence around that to actually get to that next stage and actually have the mechanics working in your favor. And so what we want to uncover is, like, do you have all the pistons working in the right fashion to get you to where you need to, and actually proving out that full-fledged engine? Or can we actually run that diagnostic to see, hey, here's the actual gap that we're seeing, we are generating revenue, but here's some concerns we have related to our overall funnel and metrics, that we then can be explicit in our experimentation around. We need to actually test this lever so we can get better unit economics throughout this whole funnel going forward.
Awesome. So what we're gonna do is something a little bit different. We're gonna play the role of forecasters, which is what we do in the real world, right? So we could have designed this as like, okay, here's what went wrong. Now let's go back and diagnose what the problem was. Instead, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have our intrepid co-host Cass give us a little fundraising narrative. So they're going to give us the high-level traction numbers, might have CAC, might have LTV, might have MRR, might have growth numbers in there, might have retention numbers in there, but they give us like, here is the set of traction numbers. They're going to give us the funding pitch. So we're asking for X to get to Y. That's going to have something to do with pouring gas on the fire. And then the funnel story as the founder tells it. Right. So we're going to get the traction numbers. We're going to get the little pitch that they're going for, and then a funnel story. And then what we're going to do is we're going to find out what's broken or what's missing maybe from that story. We're going to start like tearing this down a little bit, see if we can predict in advance, glancing into the Palantir, what about that funnel is going to explode or leak. We're going to talk about what are the true, like, actual diagnostic questions that we can look at that a smart investor or advisor is going to be looking at. This is the kinds of things that Cameron and I are doing every day with real startups. So we're going to show you how we think about that in these highly contrived, like, made up scenarios, and then what you should do instead of raising, right? Because you don't want to raise at that point. You haven't figured out, or at least you don't want to raise under that same scenario, right? So what should you do instead of raising? As you've identified. Now, for each of these, we're also going to give it a little score, because we have to give it a little score. We've done the little, like, 1 out of 10 thing the last couple episodes, so we're gonna take a break from that, and we're gonna do. We've come up with these little fun labels for things. Don't worry about memorizing these; they'll come back. But basically, we're gonna talk about these like 6 different ways that we can evaluate what we've just heard. Right, the story that we've just heard. Is it actually gas worthy? That's the first one, right? It's okay to scale. Good, it's gas worthy. The second one is it's a leaky funnel, right? The key metrics are going to get busted by Cameron and myself. And then the third one is it's a founder mirage, right? This is where it looked like traction, but it actually wasn't, right? So that's different than the funnel. Then we have the burn rate blender, where if the unit economics are such that if you actually start pouring gas on this, you're going to multiply the wrong things, and all of the problems just get bigger. This is the, like, we'll make it up in volume thing. And then the fifth one is the retention trap, where that growth is actually just going to start covering up the churn that's missing behind the scenes. So where your user acquisition is getting better, but your actual number of users is not getting better proportionally. And then the last one here is the fake CAC, where the customer acquisition cost is artificially low, maybe because the founder's selling it rather than the funnel itself. And as that comes up, we'll make it clear what that means. Should it come up? Because we don't even know. We're probably not even going to get through 6 of these. So all 6 of these labels probably not going to get used. But that's it. Gas worthy, leaky funnel, founder mirage, burn rate blender, retention trap, or fake CAC. What was that, Cameron?
I was
Let's
going to
do
say,
it.
I was going to say we could save those names for later as well.
Yeah, we'll come back to these. We'll come back to these for sure. You ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Cass, light the match. All right. Round one, the paid is working pitch. All right, here we go. The founder's pitch. We're at $6,000 monthly recurring revenue, growing approximately 15% month over month. Our CAC is just $80 through Facebook ads, and customers are converting off a landing page into a free trial and then upgrading within 7 days. Okay, cool. Retention isn't perfect. About 30% of users drop off after the first month, but we're confident we can tighten onboarding. We're raising 1.2 million to 10x ad spend, hire a growth marketer, and build out the next few features our users are asking for. All right, $6,000 MRR, 15% month over month growth, $80 CAC, 30% churn after the first month, and they're trying to raise 1.2 million to 10x their ad spend, hire a growth marketer, and build out some few features that the users are asking for.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
Where do we start the dissection? I feel like it's like a game of like Operation. I'm like, where do I want to start?
Little tweezers.
Yeah, it's like probably all of it, but we're gonna get shocked.
It's not gonna matter. This patient's dead.
Yes. We're trying to revive something that might not be there.
Yeah. So I got to say this first. 30% drop off after the first month is alarming.
Yeah.
Like
especially
nobody's
when free 7 days, and then finally they became paying customers, whatever that opt-in looked like, and then they're straight away not continuing on. That's
and they think they can fix it with onboarding, which doesn't. But why though? Like they onboarded enough to continue after the free trial, and I don't know. Maybe this is saying that 30% of users drop off after the first month, and that's their users, not customers. So maybe this includes those who don't upgrade. But I don't know. A 30% conversion off a free trial. I don't know. I don't know. Either way, this number is alarming. You're like, if you're in an early stage SaaS and you're onboarding early adopters, and your like first month's churn is above 5%, you're in trouble. Like this number should be really low.
Well, and the combining those two, they're paying to have those people, drop off at a high rate, right? So it's not only that they're like, getting these organically to come in, they're actually paying these people in terms of like paid, advertisement to ultimately come into the startup, and then dropping off at a pretty alarming rate. So, those are definitely concerns for me going forward.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I guess let's dive into the raise. So 1.2 million off of 6K MRR. So 6K MRR is 72 K ARR, if we want to think about it that way. And so 72 ARR to 1.2 million raise. I think that's a little high, based on that level of revenue. I think it's too high. And we're going to 10x ad spend. Why? The funnel's not working here, right? Like, I think that's one thing that we can actually say is the funnel's just not working. You're only growing 15% month over month, which is not great, right? Anyway, so you're not actually growing that well. So this is not a sign of the funnel working. And if it was just purely about the money, right? That like we're growing 15% month over month because our ad spend is so low because our runway is a little tight. Then maybe, but like if you're having $80 through Facebook ads, which I don't know if that's high or not because I don't know what they're actually charging here. But you're doing a 7-day trial and then getting 30% of users to drop off at the end, and you're like, there's room to play here in an $80 CAC here, right?
Yeah,
if you can, yeah.
Well, my mind kind of goes to just like, I think this is something that we're continually kind of seeing is like, now that you're at like generating revenue, a lot of startups think it's like, okay, now it's just put fuel on this fire that's going to produce more revenue without really understanding the unit economics behind all of it. And so particularly, right, was like, oh, well, we'll make up for the 30% of people dropping off on the front end by getting more people to come on, when realizing that like the retention is actually a huge issue. Is like, yeah, you might be paying to get all these users, but are you even getting your money back on that $80 that it takes to get them in, right? If the, you know, subscription is a monthly cost of $12 or something, basically they're like losing money every time they bring in a new customer, because they're not actually converting either to becoming a paid customer, and or they're becoming a paid customer not for a long enough period of time to even pay off their investment in them becoming a user or customer within their platform or app.
Yeah, one thing that might make this worse is like it's not clear the way that this is written if that $80 CAC is a paid CAC or a blended CAC.
Mm-hmm.
So like it says that the $80 through Facebook ads, right? And the customers are converted off a landing page into a free trial and then update after 7 days. So is the $80 the customer acquisition cost for the users who sign up after the end of the 7 days and pay? Or is it actually those who, like in a blended CAC, who go into the free tier? This to me reads like it's in the free tier. And if that means that this gets even worse.
Right.
Than that. But if it's a paid CAC, like I don't know if $80 is good or is good or not. I can say that there's clearly room for optimization here because of the massive like retention problems that you have. But for such slow monthly growth, like this is all just this is all broke. This is all broken. This and for that
Yeah.
reason, I'm out.
So, I mean, let's go back to kind of the component, like how might we help them, relook at it if they certainly, have cash to stay alive. Like how might they then, approach this differently, less from like a ask of a raise, but maybe looking at their funnel and some strategies or experiments to ultimately tackle. Like what would be where you would focus your energy in diving into?
Well, one of the things that I would really want to know more than anything, I think at the moment is an hypothesis about retention.
Hmm.
And I don't think that retention is necessary. Like if we were to think about all of the, the levers in our business model of acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, referral, I don't think that like retention is probably the lever that needs the most work. But I really do want an hypothesis of where that problem is coming from, because I think it's going to matter in terms of the acquisition side. So if we're losing users because we had really strong problem resonance, but then actually just didn't get the solution, just didn't pan out, then no matter how we fix the top of the funnel, we actually have a problem solution fit problem. If it's not that, and if this like 30% drop off after the first month, and they just don't return, like they're not seeing the money come back of that. Like, I don't see how that has to do with onboarding because of the free trial part. But like, let's assume, because we've talked about this before on the show, that requires some substantive onboarding steps. And
Yeah.
like the data doesn't get in there or whatever, and so like they just like, this is too much work, and so they just kind of drop off. Then like there's opportunity there to streamline, automate, whatever the onboarding. But because of the free trial thing, it just doesn't feel like that's actually the issue here. So I don't see how tightening onboarding is really going to close the gap all of the way. So like the first thing I would do is talk to the users who are leaving and find out why.
Hmm.
That's what I want to do. Like I want to know why they're leaving so quickly after the first month. And then I think I like raising money on this, like is just a disaster waiting to happen. I want to go back through the actual early stage funnel, find out like, is Facebook the actual optimum means for doing this? Like an $80 is $80 good or bad? Is there a more efficient use of that capital since we're only seeing 15% month over month? Like, is that quote unquote good for the medium, like for the Facebook channel? And are we just like judging it solely based on that means, or is it good for this market? Right? Because those are
Hmm.
two different questions. So is there a more efficient means of getting in front of them? And then eventually like that $80 CAC will be reasonable. But like if you have to raise 1.2 right now to even like spend this, and you're just saying like, let's burn cash to buy customers that are just going to leave us in a month anyway.
I hear you. Yeah, I don't have anything really more to add. I think the going back to the past customers who've dropped is obviously a key component to unraveling kind of what that situation is. And I think you see that a lot of like, oh, well, we have X number of users and they're converting to first testing it, but then you're not maybe delivering in the value, or within that time span, maybe they found other competitors in the market that are delivering the same value, and so they're kind of they're overall just testing the market, and you're the one that they did not go with, and so understanding those things could be really key.
All right. Well, which label you want to give this one?
I don't know. There's a number of them here.
Yeah, I mean, I
I think,
definitely hear like the leaky funnel, right? Like
yeah,
that's
leaky.
definitely in there.
And then I think they're trying to do like the the retention traps, so growth masks churn. So really, we're going to
Mhm.
fuel this fire to then like solve the retention problem. So just bringing on more and more people, even though that's if you're not even getting, if the LTV was higher, I think 1 month you're not necessarily going to get that ROI. I don't think. So I think as you get to scale, that becomes a major issue, particularly as you likely the cost to acquire them is going to increase as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So we got the
You ready
leaky
for another one?
funnel plus the retention trap. Sounds like a recipe for startup failure.
I don't want to be sailing on that ship.
Yeah.
All right, Cass, let's do round two. But for round two, can you also give us a one sentence description of what the startup does? That'll help us out a little bit. All right, here we go. All right. So here's our startup here. Cass calls this the Enterprise Mirage. So we're an AI-powered internal comms platform that helps mid-sized companies summarize meetings, track decisions, and automatically notify stakeholders via Slack. The founder's pitch. We've signed 3 LOIs with companies ranging from 200 to 500 employees. 2 pilots are live with one team using us in their weekly stand-ups. We're not charging yet. We wanted to focus on learning. Okay. But the feedback's been great. 9 out of 10 users say we save them time. We're raising $2 million to build enterprise-ready features, get SOC 2 compliance, and bring on a sales lead to move beyond founder-led sales. Okay. You know what? Like, I feel like I've literally heard this twice this month. Like this from real founders. This exact thing here. All right. This isn't even like this doesn't even belong in this game. This doesn't even belong because they're not even playing the game. I don't know what these LOIs include, but let's set the LOIs aside for a second and focus on the pilots. They're unpaid pilots. Their focus is on learning. I don't know what they're intending to learn, right? They shouldn't be intending to learn anything. They should be doing pilots in order to close deals. If you're doing a pilot in order to learn something, that doesn't count as traction for anything, particularly when you're not charging. And like the feedback's been great. That's 9 out of 10 times, but you're still afraid to charge them. Like what you're sitting there saying, like you're afraid to charge them. You think that you're saving them time. You have 2 pilots live. You think you have LOIs, and now you want to go raise money on the backs of absolutely no sales. And what are you going to do here? You're going to get like build enterprise ready features and SOC 2 compliance so that you can do what? Like hope that this guy that you bring in who to sell things that you've never sold before. Is this going to magically make this work to move beyond founder-led sales? How about you move into founder-led sales first, sir? Sorry, I got triggered there for a minute.
Whoa.
Okay, all right, hold
So,
on.
so yeah,
Ooh.
so where are they in this funnel creation process? So I mean, I think part of it, right, is they haven't even really started thinking about the engine, right? They're kind of just like, it's from my mindset, they're really focused on the like solution itself and like not really thinking about building the repeatable engine of their startup, right? And so they kind of have the mindset of like, oh, well, like all I have to do is build the solution and they'll come once I turn on the like paid opportunity, versus it actually being proving out the demand for the value proposition. And then, upon actually, getting that interest, then you ultimately start building out the full-fledged solution. So I think they're working a little bit backwards here in relation to it. And we've talked about this, I think, on our conversation around the prices, right? Was this kind of hesitancy for founders to want to like charge something or actually put a price out there related to what they're offering. Particularly, there's that like internal unprocessed fear of like, hey, I'm creating this thing, and is there something there? But you're not actually validating the theory of your startup if you can't like prove out those things, right? You're creating this unscalable opportunity because in these two pilots that you're running, they might both say, hey, we both need these two totally different features, and now you're building a customized thing, and say they are willing to pay for it at some point. That's not really a scalable process, and so you're actually defining this product that you can't actually position to this larger market because you now have two customized solutions for different customers, and now it's not repeatable, and so your overall pirate metrics and funnel fall flat. So those are some of the things that come to mind for me. But I guess as you think of like maybe peeling this back, like how might they look at this particular like start of a quote unquote engine that they might have? Like what, they have some of these LOIs, they do have these pilots. Like how might they reframe this in a way that they start looking at like demonstrating some of those components going forward?
You're gonna force me to be positive about this one?
Yeah, I am. I'm gonna
Cameron's picking up the
focus
pieces in real time.
There we go. This is how it happens real time.
I never yell at founders. I never do that. I scream internally sometimes. All right. No. Okay. So, like, honestly, this is not like the biggest problem here is psychological, right? And there's a number of issues just in this short thing that are going to cause problems. That are psychological problems, rather. That are psychological problems that are causing funnel problems, right? So we don't even have a real funnel yet. And to your point, Cameron. So one of the things, like, we need to draw a better line here. So you're not going to raise $2 million pre-revenue for what you want to do here. Like it's just not real. That's fantasy land. That's not going to happen. And what you're doing here is, or what's buried here, and this is me bringing in my own experience from having heard this story a lot, is you're saying that like, oh, we can charge when, right? We can charge when we have X, and that's always a trap, right? It's always a trap. And we hear this all, like, in every kind of app, from B2C, B2B, B2E, B2G. We hear this all the time. It's like we're one feature away, two features away from you that says, oh, like, yeah, like customers love us, but we can't charge them yet until we add in this other module. Like once we get these other modules running, then we can charge. We need to make sure we have SOC 2 compliance, but then we can charge. It's always a trap. So like we need to figure out how do we get out of that. One of two things: either A, how do we get out of that trap, right? And where we're able to sell what we have right now, or two, find a way to validate the sales themselves, assuming that we had that thing done. So can we get these LOIs to have something very specific in them, right? That's like, yes, we have this in this timeline, then we pay X dollars. And if you can get to a really specific LOI for that, then you might be able to do that. You're still not raising $2 million off that. Like you're still going to need to like do something much, much smaller, and you cannot bring on a sales lead yet because you have not validated any part of the sales process. So this has to stay founder-led sales. So what you really are doing here is raising to close the 3 LOIs that you, assuming again that they're substantive enough, like to close those 3 LOIs and get those to revenue and valid, and then start to build out a process of repeatable sales so that in the future you can do this. Maybe you can raise, $250 to do something like that, at that point, to try to close, assuming that the LOIs are robust enough. But outside of that, there's just really nothing to be done here.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add outside of like what patterns can you start to pull out to like better define who those customers are, both from the LOIs as well as those that you're running the pilots. And I think like the biggest thing to be asking is like, as you're running these pilots, like as they're asking for these new features, is there alignment in those features and the particular problems they're trying to have solved? So like really taking that mindset of like, what are their needs, wants, and fears related to that, and are those is it repeatable to sell to those two customers in the same way going forward versus it being like, oh, well, we're just going to do these pilots, custom build, and then sell. Like that's not going to be the scalable engine for you to grow, because that's just one, selling to these enterprise customers is going to take a while. But then also you're like, every time you're going to have to like do a new build for each of them, it isn't going to get that growth engine that you ultimately need to go forward.
Yeah. Okay. Let's rate this one so we can do one more.
I mean, the one that comes to mind, like, I don't think it's the right one, but the like founder Mirage, I think part of it, right, is like there's a feeling of like people are using it, they're trying it out, they're giving us feedback, right? They're giving that feedback that maybe there is some value being gained, but we're actually not getting true traction in the way that like there's actually a signal of buying behavior, because there actually hasn't probably been any ask or commitment from them on that lens of it, right? So we're getting a lot of feedback related to the feasibility and those types of components, but not really this core desirability of them having this urgent and severe pain point, and that they're actually like willing to put resources to solving it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This looks like traction, but I'm actually not seeing any real traction here. Maybe the LOIs count. Like it's a lot that's going to depend on the details. That you have some pilots running, does that count as some form of traction? Yeah, depending on some details there. But if your whole basis of doing a pilot is, A helps B figure out if C works, then that doesn't translate into anything meaningful as far as customers are concerned. So,
well, again, I think we often talk about it's contextual. I think where we probably leaned in so heavy related to where they were was tied to their ask, right? A 2 million ask for this level of what they believe traction doesn't mirror, versus if you were doing, say, an angel round of investment for, a couple hundreds of thousands of dollars or something like that. That's a little bit more realistic in terms of like, okay, well, how might we then, turn in some of this like into some more of that desirability evidence. That's a more right-sized ask and more traction related to that, versus raising a 2 million round. That seems like a far-fledged gap to close.
Totally. All right.
Probably one more.
All right, Cass, let's do one more. You left me pretty triggered on that one. Not gonna lie, but let's do a round 3, bro. Cass is celebrating that I was emotionally triggered. But
They did
all
their
right.
job. They did their job.
That's what they think here. Yeah, that's exactly the energy we want, saith Cass. All right, round 3, the founder-led sales trap. So here we go. Let's just dive on in. So we're a B2B SaaS tool for creative agencies to streamline client approvals, asset delivery, and revision tracking, like Notion meets Frame.io for client work. Okay. The founder pitch, they're at 12,000 MRR, mostly through founder-led outreach and warm intros. We're closing about 1 in 4 demos. We just hired 2 account executives to take over sales, and we're raising 1.8 million to build top of funnel, expand marketing, and scale up outbound to go faster. Our churn is a little high right now, but we think that's because we've outgrown some of our early customers. I had some more positive things to say before I got to the end of that. Like my favorite part of that, it's just like, yeah, our customers are leaving us, but you know what? It's their fault. It's on them. That's on them.
Yeah, that is an interesting. It's an interesting approach to thinking through that particular pain point, right? It's not like owning that that's an issue, but also then like, what does that mean? Is that something that you're just going to continually see? Like you're always outgrowing your customers. So then like, how do you actually build your customer base going forward? So it's like in this repeatable growth engine that you're creating, you're, losing a lot of potential customers because you're outgrowing them. So yeah, it seems like they're not even worried about trying to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So a couple things come to mind. So I mean the big picture here is that this isn't going to work, um, because we're still doing like it's founder-led outreach, warm intros, and then the raise is 1.8 million to build the top of the funnel. So even assuming that works, it's all going to fall apart when they go down lower in the funnel, because those warm relationships and everything else just don't exist. So we actually are raising against a theory we have not proved yet. So like that just won't work. There's no going faster, to quote the founder here, because you actually haven't achieved the speed yet. I mean, there's nothing wrong with like that founder-led outreach and warm intros closing deals. I mean, that's great. And if you got to 12K MRR with this B2B tool doing that, I mean, I say kudos to you. You're at like 150K ARR. Like you're doing great. Like that's, as far as the revenue, you're doing like kudos. Yes, that's traction. Rock and roll. Closing 1 in 4 demos, that feels a little low. But you know, you're probably getting a lot of people to come through because of their warm intros, and so like they're giving you time when they otherwise wouldn't have. So maybe it's not an issue. I'd like to see that higher for those who actually schedule demos. Not a lot higher, 2 and 5 kind of thing. But yeah. So but overall, it's positive. Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to go to that point. Like I think that's. Sorry, I was on mute there from my coughing earlier.
You were off mute for the first part of that sentence.
Interesting. Maybe the the AI engine in here somewhere didn't want me to share what I was saying.
And you're done.
But I think your point was that 1 in 4 and maybe getting some of those bad leads is like, that's why you don't necessarily probably want to just fund this effort going forward, just in terms of the engine, because it's not really that repeatable process yet, because you don't know who that right customer is to totally get into that demo. And so a lot of work in defining through a hypothesis, like, okay, this 1 in 4 that we're landing, and those that are actually staying on as the customers, those that aren't like you've quote unquote grown out of, who is that customer? And then setting up that hypothesis of, can we get in front of them in a repeatable way outside of just that like founder and warm intros, right? And so that's where you actually have to start building that funnel and testing some of those things. That will then give you greater evidence to actually then going and raising capital for that engine going forward. So I just wanted to connect to those dots from the demo and really starting to build out that process of who actually that early customer might be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. And like there's this churn thing that's sitting out there, like the churn being too high. I want to know more, but I don't care really right now. I want to know more. That's a problem, and you're never raising 1.8 until you close that gap a little bit. But 1.8 is off the table. Like that's not going to be a thing, because you're trying to raise against a completely unproven hypothesis. But scale it. So if we scale that down to, like we just need some money to, help us test out top of funnel, right? Like if that's what we're trying to do, it's not 1.8, it's probably a tenth of that. At which case, at that point, I don't know how much I care about churn, because I don't even know if they're the right customers yet.
Right.
And so, I just kind of wanted to say, like, it's a problem, but it's not what I want to focus on, right? I want to focus on everything you said, Cameron. Like, how do we identify, we're closing 1 in 4, what makes the one different than the other 3, right? And then can we use what we've learned from closing that one to define an early adopter segment that we can go after, and can we go after them cheaply and efficiently? And then can we use the language that we're getting from them to put meaningful messages in front of them in ways that cause them to come in and convert? And if we can start doing that, then we might be onto something interesting here. And at that point, we're going to have to really take a serious look at that churn. And you can, in their hypothesis of like, we've outgrown some of our early customers, like, okay, well, bake that in to the hypothesis and acquire some of the new customers and see if the churn improves. And if it doesn't, then, well, stop blaming your customers for your own damn problems.
Right. No, I hear it. Should we give it a rating here, or any additional thoughts?
Yeah, let's give it a rating here. So for me, I'm going to. I mean, there's a couple of things that I want to call out here. I think we've got the we have a fake CAC in here. So CAC wasn't even mentioned because we basically only be doing founder-led sales, right? So like there's a fake CAC here, and I want to know what that translates to at the end of the day. That's not the biggest problem, but I did want to call out since we haven't used that one yet.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we talk about the founder selling it, not the funnel, right?
Right. For sure.
And so yeah, so like just a couple of sentences on that because it's really common. It's like you're doing outreach to people you know and warm intros because you have a lot of relationships in the field. That's great. Like that's going to definitely help you in the early days to prove some things out and get some of that early traction. That's awesome. But you're in this case, like customer acquisition costs are artificially low because the founder is selling. But also than that, what's happening is that the founder is making sales and you don't have a funnel. Right? There's no funnel there's no top of funnel, there's no bottom of funnel. It's all in founder relationships. And as soon as you start switching out of that, almost all, virtually all, like 9 out of 10 things that you've relied on for sales just fall apart. And they just, or not fall apart, but just go away, right? They just disappear because you've replaced them with this what you think is a repeatable funnel that's really not based on anything. So founder selling it, not the funnel, fake CAC. That's the one I'm going with.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the burn rate blender. And so part of that, right, is like if they're investing to get more people in the top of the funnel and you're getting more of the wrong people in the top of the funnel, I see that kind of, conversion rate in those demos potentially decreasing even greater. So instead of it being 1 in 4, it could go to 1 in 8 because you're getting the wrong people in the top of funnel because they haven't really done the work to actually identify those particular customers. And so you're kind of building to scale the wrong particular thing. So ultimately your scaling will multiply the wrong thing of getting the wrong people in the top of funnel, which then you'll see all the way through, whether that's in the demo rates. So maybe you're still getting a greater number of people converting, but the percentage goes down, and then you're going to see that retention problem of you quote unquote outgrowing them because they were never the right customer to begin with.
Awesome. Well, I agree with that. No wrong answers here, but that is all the time that we have.
We're always right at the 0 to traction.
That's why people keep coming back. That's why you guys come. Where else can you get such high level yet detailed quality conversations about the early stage startup problems that you either are already experiencing, or if you're lucky enough to make forward progress that you will soon experience. And we're here to help you overcome those obstacles like a smart founder will, and make your way toward the real traction, the kind of substantive traction you need to build a company that's scale. But we cannot end 0 to traction without some frivolous thoughts to leave you with. So I'll kick things off. I mentioned this to you, Cameron, before we started recording here, but mine is definitely going to be Severance this week, that the Apple TV series Severance. It is living rent free in my head, like between the I can't remember if it was the penultimate or maybe the second, the antepenultimate, second to last, or something episode of the first season. Because I'm into the second season now, but I haven't finished the second season. But during that time period when like all the shit was coming to a head, and we had and tension started building, as this like great television doing what great television does. This thing was living in my head. I was thinking about it throughout the day. I don't binge like television. I actually don't enjoy that. I like to savor things. I want to control when I watch it. So don't go back to like releasing an episode a week. I don't like that shit. But I don't want to just like binge it all the time. But my wife and I actually during Liam's nap on Saturday watched like 3 episodes in a row of it. It's good television. It's good shit. Keeps things moving. It's really compelling. Absolutely incredible world building for the premise of the show. Like you expect that kind of thing maybe in fantasy. And you see a lot of that world building, say in John Wick is another weird place where you have a lot of that world building, but you don't normally see it in shows like this because it's not usually required. But they did an extraordinary job with that. And I can't wait to see like how some of those things unfold, knowing full well that they're going to end the second season without answering my questions, because that's how television works these days. But cannot recommend Severance enough. dive in and do yourself a little favor.
There you are. So I'm glad you hopped into the Severance world and enjoyed it. So it's yeah, it was a good show. I'm looking forward to. I'm not sure when they're doing season 3, so we'll have to unpack that together. So
they say they're in pre-production, so it's going to be a while.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll continue with I hadn't really prepared any frivolous thoughts, so thanks for going first. Been a little under the weather, and so this weekend did spend a little time watching some TV as well with Katie, and we did a short. It was a short series, I think is what it's called, just where it's like one season show, and it was called Better Sisters. It was like a murder mystery. But very complicated relationships and everything. But it was a really interesting one where it was just like you're wanting to get back into it and see. And it was like one of those where like each time it showed the murder, there was like new evidence that you started to see from like different perspectives. And so it was kind of an interesting one. So you're kind of guessing throughout the entire time, like who was the actual murderer. And so it was a pretty good one. I recommend. It's called Better Sisters on Amazon Prime, so check that one out. But yeah, I'll keep with the TV theme for this frivolous thought. So
awesome. I actually haven't even heard of that one, which is
rare. One that you wanted, like it was like the picture is like the two sisters on a beach, and so you'd be like, oh, Better Sisters, that looks like but it was a whole, if you'd have to read the title to be like, or the description of it to so Katie was like, oh, I heard about this, and so it was a pretty good one.
Very cool. I'll have to check that out. Well, that brings us to the end of the show here. Thank you as always for listening. Time is the most precious resource you have, the one you can never get back. Thanks for spending 45 minutes with us today. Can't thank you enough. If you want to, if you're wanting to give back, if you're feeling like you've gotten something out of Zero Detraction, do us a favor, share it with somebody. Right now, think of somebody who's like in that place where they're trying to raise some money to scale their funnel operations, and just send them a text right now and say, hey, check out today's episode of Zero Detraction. I think it'll help you out, and it'll really help us out. So really thank you for that. And of course, leave a rating and review wherever you rate and review, and like and subscribe wherever you like and subscribe. And you can always sign up to get notified, get the show notes, get all the detailed shit by going to zerodetraction.substack.com and signing up there, totally free. And yeah, that's it. This is fun.
This is fun. I just wanted to do a quick few shout outs. I went on the back of our, Substack, and wanted to just shout out some of our listeners who are like, our 5-star listeners here. So Lisa with Heirloom Explorer, thanks for just being a awesome listener throughout the years, which is awesome. So I can even say years there. We got same with Sylvia from Gondo Fusion. We love your Cuban Mexican fusion. So Traction,
we really do.
Always a thumbs up related to that. But also has been a 5-star listener for years now. So just wanted to thank our longtime listeners, and thanks for putting us in your ear week over week. And excited to see the continued success of your startups.
Well said. Thanks for doing that. That's awesome shout outs. We should have teased that at the top
in
case people.
But no, they're going to be listening anyway, so that those that know.
Yeah, if you know, you know. All right, and with that, we'll call it here. Thanks again, Cameron, for hopping into the studio, even though you're a little under the weather, and I'm sure I will see you in meetings later.
Yes, you got it. All righty. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks, JDM.